This is the homework video for Monday, 1/23/17. In your homework packet, you're doing page 27, number 2, A, B, and C. The skills you need for today's homework assignment are to estimate a point on a graph, a point of intersection, to come up with an equation for a line on a graph, which we've done before, and to solve a system algebraically. Pay attention to which of these you need help with from the video, because at this point you should be able to do all three of these. This one 100% by yourself, this one at least partially, and for many of you all the way, and this one again at least partially. So pay attention to the parts you might need help with. Okay, now the first thing is it's asking you just to estimate the coordinate for the intersection. And so if I look at the x-axis, it's over, it's not quite to 2, but it's farther than 1.5. And so I'm estimating 1.8. And then if I look at the y-axis, this is 1.5, but it looks like the point is just below 1.5, so I estimated 1.4. That one should have been easy for you. You shouldn't really have needed any help on that. On the next part, it's asking you to figure out which of these choices match the two lines that are in here. Well, so you should really be good now at putting a slope triangle in and finding the y-intercept and finding the equation for a line. If you're not, that's something you might want to ask me to help you practice. It's something you should be able to do on your own. So for this first line, it's starting right here. This is the y-intercept at 6. And this equation and this equation both have y-intercepts at 6. So if I find the slope by putting in a slope triangle here and here, where the line is exactly crossing grid intersections, and then I notice that they're counting by 0.5s here, so this would be 1 for my rise, and this would be 2, and this is 1/2, and since it's going down, my rise is -2.5. And then my run is 1, and so it's -2.5 divided by 1. And so the answer is 6 minus 2.5. It can't be this one because the slope was wrong. On the second one, when I put the slope triangle in at 2 grid intersection points, I chose these two. The rise was 2, 1, 2. You have to pay attention to what they're counting by. And the run was 1, 2.5. And when you do 2, the rise divided by 2.5, then you're going to get 0.8. And the only one that has a slope of 0.8 is this one. And I also noticed that the y-intercept is 0, which this equation shows that the y-intercept is 0, so it has to be this one. B and E are the equations. You must, to get credit for your homework, have your slope triangle drawn in for this one with it labeled, and the slope triangle drawn in here with a label and a label, showing that you actually found this math. 2 divided by 2.5 is 0.8. And here I don't need to see 2.5 divided by 1, because I know most of you know that 2.5 divided by 1 is 2.5. Going on to C. C says you have to solve the system, and you're trying to see how close your original estimation of the point was to the correct answer for the system. So the two equations in the system, again, were B and E, so I wrote them down in system notation. You do not have to do that, but you do need to show all the work for solving it. So I wrote that 0.8x is equal to 6 minus 3x, and the reason I know that's true, that they're equal to each other, is because they're both equal to y. Then I want to get the x on one side, so I subtract 0.8x here, and I subtract 0.8x over here, and that gives me nothing here equals 6 minus 3.8x, because -3x and -0.8x is -3.8x. Now I subtract 6 here, and I subtract 6 here, and that gives me negative 6 is equal to negative 3.8x. This means multiply, the opposite of it is divide, so I divide on both sides, and that gives me 30/19. If your calculator doesn't do things in fractions, it probably said 1.57, I forgot, it was a really long decimal, which rounds to 1.6, but fractions are always more accurate. So if you wrote it as 1.57, I want you right now to write it on your paper as 3/19, which is 1 and 11/19. Write both of these. That's another required thing to write down in order to get credit for this homework assignment. Now what I have to do is I found what the x is. The x point of the intersection right here is 1 and 11/19, but I still need to know what the y is. So I take the x answer that I got and I put it back into both of the equations, this one and this one, and I check to see what I get. So if I do 0.8 times 30/19, or 1 and 11/19, the calculator says about 1.3. Again, it was a long number, which in fractions is 24/19. You must write 24/19, which is then 1 and 5/19. You must write that as well. So the exact answer for where the two lines intersect, this is the solution to the system, is 1 and 11/19, comma 1 and 5/19. We were close to that when we estimated at about 1.8 and 1.4, but we didn't get the exact answer. That's why we often solve things that are on a graph algebraically, because sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly where that point is. Okay, have a good night and I'll see you tomorrow.